All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. Share them far and wide. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Rumble, but of course, the best place is right down there, peoplespundit.locals.com. Don't forget to follow us over there. Become a member. Sign up later if you want. Become a supporter, but that's the place to be. Oh, boy. As you may notice, I'm like trying to race through the intro here because I have I don't know, 8 clips I want to go through, I guess, maybe, but I don't think we're going to be able to because one is kind of long. We're going to play it, stop it, play it, stop it, play it, stop it. And then, of course, I want to go over some of the polling that's come out. Also, little show announcement. Laura will not be here on Friday. She's got a school trip with the kids. So we will try, if there is time, to get through some questions today, but just hold off on them until we give the thumbs up on that. And if we do it, if we can, we can. All right. If not, then I will try on my best on Friday and likely fail miserably as usual to get through as many as I can. It's just much harder when she's not there to do it. Oh boy. So top story here. First of all, as we said and suspected, the Alvin Bragg and the indictment brought by Alvin Bragg in New York. Oh, Winston's looking for my attention. The indictment brought by Alvin Bragg in New York is Democrats' last and best hope to get Donald Trump convicted of something before the election. Based on the conduct of the prosecutors yesterday, anyone who did not believe that that is what this is all about. And of course, I mean, when people care only about raw power, if they can imprison him for the rest of his life as punishment for going against the ruling class, they'll do that. I mean, these people are out for blood. But this is because they know that this, or they feel, they believe. I mean, you know it now from the way they acted, that they cannot win in a fair fight. Like the author of the piece we read on Monday suggested. The behavior by the prosecutor would have been tantamount to a mistrial in any of the cases that we have worked on. We would have loved it. We would have sat there with a eating grin on our face, and that would have been the end of it. But unfortunately for Donald Trump, this is a complete kangaroo court. Judge Merchan, whose daughter works for works for a firm that's working to get Joe Biden elected and is raising money on this. The judge himself is an epic scumbag. The prosecutor has made donations to Joe Biden. The person who went to assist Alvin Bragg was Joe Biden's number 3 at the Justice Department. I mean, this is completely a political prosecution. And after yesterday, the testimony, and we're going to get through this, what the prosecutor, the direction he went, the direction the judge, she allowed the judge to go. I mean, the direction the judge allowed the prosecution to go, and the testimony by Stormy Daniels herself is not going to go over well with the American public. And I don't mean badly for Donald Trump. This is going to go over badly for them. The media, they can lead with whatever headlines they want, but this is an absolute joke. I mean, Americans aren't this dumb. I'm sorry, they're not. Again, busy is one thing, dumb is very different, and they're going to see right through this. This was one of, if not the weakest case against Donald Trump. And then before we get into it, though, and I'll read more from the judge's order in a bit, but obviously Judge Cannon indefinitely put off the trial in the classified documents case, and that's a wrap for them. I mean, that is a wrap for them. Also have a lot of economic news that I really want to get to, because the economic news is extremely important. I told you we're going to focus more on this in the upcoming months, because it's a big deal. And we used to do it a lot, but now that it is an election year, an election cycle, we're already in it. Now that we're in that election cycle, the way that Americans feel about the economy is going to be huge. And one of the reasons why they think Donald Trump was a better president is because of his handling of the economy. So actually, before we get into the clips, let me edit. Nobody wants to hear about these stupid little nobody wants to hear about their stupid little commercials. Let's just, instead of, I was going to read the judge's order, but this is highlighted here, and the Washington Examiner took a tweet from somebody and he highlighted it, and that's what I was going to go and read to you anyway. So let me just bring it up. All right, here it is. You can look and see my ugly mug, or we could just look at the whole thing. All right. The move, blah, 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 blah. Trump classified documents trial suspended indefinitely. All right. The U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon has indefinitely suspended former President Donald Trump's classified documents trial. Now, I am not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I never aspired to be one. Oh, that's not true. I did think about law school, but I never aspired to be a judge. I don't know what this judge, he perceives to be her obligation or responsibility to the court. But if I was her, I would view my responsibility to the law, my fidelity to the law, and my responsibility to the court very simply, and I would not have split the baby, or at least, listen, the baby was split in a disproportionate fashion, and that disproportion favors Donald Trump. Okay, so this is probably, and I think they rightfully say this in the Washington Examiner article, this is his biggest legal victory yet. I mean, this is huge. So while she did split hairs, somewhat, the crux of what he was asking for, she gave him for the reasons that he argued. All right, so the move has been widely anticipated for some time. It marks perhaps the greatest legal victory in Trump's struggle against his 4 major indictments. And of course, there are more. And 91. There aren't 91 anymore. All right. But that's the word that's the drum they're going to keep on beating. That's the horse they're going to beat anyway. That's the dead horse they're going to beat. That's an old expression. It was previously scheduled to take place in May. On May 20th, if you recall, during the primary season, his opponents were saying, hey, he's going to be, wrapped up, in one court case to another. In truth, oh, and by the way, legal analysts would say, how does this even work? How's he going to go from New York to Florida to here to there to DC to Georgia? Well, Georgia is we all know they can keep trying to move forward, but Georgia's completely discredited. And Jack Smith is about to get a large chunk of his indictment gutted in the January 6th, or at least anticipated that he will. So that leaves him his document case, and it leaves Democrats that and Alvin Bragg. Well, this ain't happening. Cannon gave a reasoning as respecting Trump's right to due process and the public's interest in the, quote, fair and efficient administration of justice. And I'm going to read this whole paragraph real quick. The court also determines that finalization of a trial date at this juncture, before resolution of a myriad and interconnected pretrial and CPA issues remaining and forthcoming, would be imprudent and inconsistent with the court's duty to fully and fairly consider the various pending pretrial motions before the court, critical CIPA, issues, and additional pretrial and trial preparation necessary to present this case to a jury. Listen, there are so many records in this case, and in order for the defendant to be able to get a reasonable or a credible defense, they would need a ton of time. Obviously, there is, the prosecutor's office, Jackson, he's been holding on to things, to do that on purpose, to make discovery difficult. But any fair judge would say this is just frankly impossible. A case like this would take probably years to get the trial. But think about the amount of the paperwork we're talking about here. Boxes and boxes and boxes. I can't remember the number, but I heard it. It was insane. I mean, just a total insane number. And here it is highlighted. The court therefore vacates the current May 20, 2024 trial date and associated calendar call to be reset by separate order following resolution of the matters before the court, consistent with defendants' rights to due process and the public's interest in the fair and efficient administration of justice. Listen, the right to a speedy and fair trial is the defendant's right. I don't care what you hear on MSNBC or CNN from these idiots who actually have a law degree. That is not, it is not there to protect the prosecution. It's not there to protect the public. It's there to protect the defendant. And in the public's interest, I mean, it's largely those who could be charged with a crime. And yes, the court system has to make cases they have to push them through the pipeline, but not at the expense of due process. Special counsel Jack Smith had urged Cannon to hold the trial in July and laid out his case earlier this month. Trump's team argued that the trial should be held after the November election or after August at the earliest. Listen, even August would have been an absolute breach of the Justice Department's longstanding policy has always been not to bring and try cases, not to bring charges in any period of an election year that resembles the Justice Department, that could even be taken with an inkling that the Justice Department is trying to interfere with an election. The fact that they waited so long for this, and by the way, let Joe Biden go, even though Joe Biden was not the president and did not have the power to classify or declassify anything. Trump did, unlike Biden and Hillary Clinton. Even still, the timing is criminal. Obviously, they were trying to interfere with an election. Their motive was precisely to breach ethics and breach the department's policy. So, listen, there's a slew of things that Cannon wrote out because of the Trump team's assertions. First of all, there's a motion to challenge whether Jack Smith even has the authority to bring this indictment. Who the hell is he? He doesn't comply with the statute. This idea in the Trump era that there can be some rogue prosecutor, the Justice Department slaps with authority and recognizes as like some sovereign authority all by themselves, is very scary. Again, I used the word on Monday. It's Soviet level stuff. It's Nazi really level stuff because we're not publicly owned. We're not yet a publicly owned economy, which makes us fascist, not Marxist or communist, but I digress as being technical here. But in those authoritarian societies, they vest all power with a vehicle of the state. In this case, a special prosecutor who has all the authority to just go after who the hell he feels like. Same thing with Robert Mueller. Who the hell was Robert Mueller? He is not above the presidency. The Justice Department is not independent, and contrary, again, to what you have heard throughout the Trump era, the Justice Department is not independent. It is subservient to the executive. The executive is your representative, the only representative in the executive branch, which is extremely powerful. You are the sovereign. The voter is the sovereign. And the president is the voter's representative within that branch. There's no Robert Mueller who isn't accountable to the law or subject to being fired by the president. There is no Jack Smith who could come out of nowhere after failing to bring cases at The Hague and decide to try the leading candidate for president because the current one is scared shitless. The hell kind of country are we running here? This is not how it goes. And we shouldn't have to rely on the half spines of judges like Cannon and others to set this right. And while it is the judiciary's job to, and I was talking to Greg Jarrett about this, a month and a half ago or something like that. And I had asked Greg Jarrett, don't you think we're relying too much on the judiciary here? This is our fault. Don't you? I mean, really, This is our fault. Our elected leaders are supposed to be doing something about this. And he said, you know what? I know it's a burden. I know it's a lot to ask, but so effing what? This is their job. Their job is to interpret the law and safeguard it against the tyrannical. But we're always just one decision away from it, aren't we? We cannot conduct a free society like this. Can impartially justify the delay as needed in order to comply with the Classified Documents Procedures Act, which again is what I brought up before. Do you have any idea how many documents there are and the procedures you have to go through with this? This is insane. May, June, even August. That's crazy. And August, right at the end of September, right at the start of the Labor Day sprint to the finish line. Oh, kiss mine. How could you tolerate this? How could anyone, liberal or Democrat, tolerate this? And I'm going to play one of those clips that will give a lecture over the Alvin Bragg stuff, but it's more than just come on. This is all a fragment of the same blueprint. Quote, the court also determines that, I already read that. Though not his first official indictment, the classified documents case was the first legal battle with Trump to go public after FBI agents raided his Mar-a-Lago compound on August 8, 2022. Also a Stasi-like move. Outrageous. The search came as a shock to many and represented the first major legal challenge to Trump since leaving office, coming nearly a half a year before his indictment. He was indicted on 40 charges 1 year after the search. Trump is accused of mishandling classified documents for his administration, taking them to his private residence after leaving office, and being uncooperative with government officials trying to retrieve them. Newsflash, that every president does this. Newsflash, nothing novel, nothing new. The only new thing about it is that Donald Trump isn't part of the political class, and Donald Trump did not govern for the ruling class. He governed for you, whether you like him or not. That's why he ran for president. He, on very, very few occasions, threw people under the bus. COVID. COVID is like one of the main things you could argue. Immigration, the wall was going up. I hate to tell you. It was. There was a cute little graphic on Borders and Customs, the website. You can go and look at it. This is how much of the wall we've gotten done up into this part. It's not my fault you were unaware of that, and you're just like a Twitter token dude. Anyway, COVID. That's it. Because he felt like he absolutely could not challenge the public health mafia. Right? Imagine if he would have. All right, then we get to Stormy Daniels. I just got to show you this picture, okay? Here's Stormy Daniels testifying. Unbelievably outrageous. You have a Biden donor questioning Stormy Daniels, presiding over a court that's being run by another Biden supporter whose daughter works for a firm who's working to get Joe Biden elected and is raising money hand over fist off of this case. Folks, the disgusting level of impropriety here is beyond anything America has ever seen. And there's been some really dirty prosecutions in this company. Arthur Anderson, with MSNBC's and CNN too sometimes, their favorite legal analyst, number 2 to Robert Mueller himself, Andrew Weissman. Universally rebuked by the Supreme Court 9-0, even by the liberals, for being a dirtbag who destroyed the lives of thousands of people. And what I heard yesterday, first of all, I got some notes from some people about how the jury was behaving. Why? Because that's when I'm not publicly polling. This is what we do a lot. And I wish I did more of it. Because how many freaking times can you ask, do you approve or disapprove? It's very interesting work. And when I believe the client is innocent, or I believe there was an injustice, it's very fulfilling work. Now, I got some notes on some of the responses. Nonverbal cues, whatever you want to call them, about how the jury was acting. And even though this is a rabidly liberal area where most of the jurors from the jury pool hate Donald Trump. I'm telling you what I heard, which some reporters were honest about yesterday, did not go over well for Alvin Bragg in his case. Let's play one clip. It's already 12:22. I got to start burning through them. Let's play one clip, and then we will talk about a little bit here and there.
Man, boy, her responses were disastrous. I mean, do you hate Donald Trump? Yes, of course she does. That's a big deal. When the witness hates the person whose liberty is at stake, that's a big damn deal. And she's putting out tweets, fantasizing about him being in jail. That really undermines the credibility. The fact that she owes him $500,000, she, by order of a court, owes Donald Trump $500,000 and said, I will never pay him. I will defy a court order. The defense is going to say she's willing to defy a court order. Why? She's not willing to respect an order of a judge. Why is she going to respect this oath she took? So I thought it went quite poorly on cross-exam. At the end of direct, I thought, okay, they got what they needed. But I think the cross is making real inroads.
Is making real inroads. The cross-examination by Trump's attorneys ripped Stormy Daniels apart. And if half of what I was told was the reaction is true, they think she is a piece of filth, white trash, who doesn't have any credibility whatsoever. That's how she's going to come across. Now, that was CNN and their reaction. That's as good as it's going to get, isn't it? We're going to have more. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to do some Fox pundits. We're going to do some CNN pundits. Even those who try to put a good spin on this, you're going to hear a common theme, especially from those people, even when they try to hide it, are rather serious people in a courtroom. All right. This did not go well for Miss Daniels. And her appearance, by the way, I heard was disgusting. Despite, and I'm not going to, this is one of the clips I'm going to cut. We're not going to play. Despite Lawrence O'Donnell trying to depict this woman as like Mother Teresa or something, black, head to toe, as if she's, you know, in the nun. I don't even know what he's like a friggin' idiot. She's not what she used to be. And as you'll see in a second when we roll out through a couple graphics, I think we were very generous to Miss Daniels. All right. Listen, hey, I'm no spring chicken either. So don't take it the wrong way. I traded in my 6-pack plus 2 years ago for, you know, a quarter kegger. All right. So that's just what happens as some of us gets older. But you have to come across a certain way in a courtroom when you're giving testimony. Otherwise, people don't find you credible. They don't find you believable. The jury has to like you. And when you come across as a scumbag porn star, a filthy, you know, who tried to extort somebody after the fact, then it's not going to, I don't care what you are, who you are. You must really hate. They need 12 people to hate Donald Trump to death here after this. And who's up next? Michael Cohen? Come on. Are you kidding me? But they're rushing to get a conviction, even though people from CNN to Fox News yesterday agreed that what the prosecution did today, where they let Stormy Daniels go, some of the stuff that came out, this is mistrial territory. This is done. And there is, if you look at what happened with Harvey Weinstein, of course, that was what? Years later. This is the same jurisdiction. They threw out Weinstein's. And that was way easy. This is a much easier call, is what I'm trying to tell you. This is a much easier call here. All right. There's two, I think we got 2 clips with Greg Jarrett, but I want to play the first one first. And then, because the other one's kind of long, we'll go back and forth and wind up being interrupted by a commercial break here. But we will come back and just get right back to it. Here's the first one with Greg Jarrett. This is on Jesse Waters.
Well, Stormy Daniels was called to the witness stand for only one purpose, Sean, to slime Trump. But she's peddled so many conflicting stories. You know, you get whiplash on cross-examination, though. She withered. She was confronted with hard evidence that her motive was greed, hatred of Trump. So, you know, hopefully jurors saw her for what she is, a shakedown artist. It's her livelihood. And at one point, she unbelievably claimed, oh, I don't care about the money. only making my story public. Well, if that's true, why did you agree to remain silent in exchange for big bags of money?
Yep,
She is so clueless. She walked right into it today. And as witnesses go, I'd say she self-destructed. But the professor is right. None of what she had to say today was remotely relevant to any of the charges against Donald Trump. She had no knowledge. Prosecutors put her on the stand to vilify Trump with a salacious story, irrelevant, highly prejudicial, probative of nothing. And that is the legal standard that makes her testimony inadmissible. And any fair judge would not have allowed it. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, he's stuck with Juan Marchand as the judge.
Yeah, and that's why it was mistrial territory, period, end of story, because the jury cannot unhear some of the things that she had said. Now, what does he mean? And by the way, somebody said gold digger and Laura put up. And also, I thought this was a different clip, but that's all right. We're going to go reverse in a second, but it'll work. What does he mean by conflicting statements? Yeah, I don't know. This isn't very hard to find. And obviously, Trump's team was loaded and ready for bear. Okay. Here's Stormy Daniels, January 10th, 2018. To whom it may concern, I recently became aware that certain news outlets are alleging that I had a sexual and/or romantic affair with Donald Trump many, many, many years ago. I am stating with complete clarity that this is absolutely false. My involvement with Donald Trump was limited to a few public appearances and nothing more. When I met Donald Trump, he was gracious, professional, and a complete gentleman to me and everyone, all caps, everyone in my presence. Rumors that I have received hush money from Donald Trump are completely false. If indeed I did have a relationship with Donald Trump, trust me, you wouldn't be reading about it in the news. You would be reading about it in my book. But the fact of the matter is, these stories are not true. She's just a gold-digging piece of trash. Can anybody say otherwise? This is a gold-digging piece of trash. So if you're the jury, which one is it? You wish you profited, you wish it was true because you would have profited off of it with your book. At least that's the one consistent claim, the one consistent theme that comes out of Miss Daniels' mouth, that I am a gold digger who only cares about myself, and I will say whatever I have to say or make up whatever I got to make up in order to get my profile higher so I can make some money off of it. Let's not forget what this woman used to do for a living. Now, hey, to each his own. I'm just saying, it's pretty damn consistent with the kind of character she is. Next, I don't know, let's waltz up Michael Cohen, another freaking winner to make their case. This is unbelievable. By the way, 20 days later, I kid you not, this is January 30th, 2018, to whom it may concern. Over the past few weeks, I have been asked countless times to comment on reports of an alleged sexual relationship I had with Donald Trump many, many, many years ago. What the hell does she keep doing that for? The fact of the matter is that each party to this alleged affair denied its existence in 2006, 2011, 2016, 2017, and now again in 2018. I am not denying this affair because I was paid, quote, hush money, as has been reported in overseas and tabloids. I am denying this affair because it never happened. I will have no further comment on this matter. Please feel free to check me out on Instagram at the Stormy Daniels. Oh my God. Oh my God, this woman.
She literally advertised herself in an official statement, yo.
She's
what kind
trash.
of, you know what? She's just a hoe.
She's trash. She's total trash. Kanye West, gold digger. Somebody play it. Listen, this is, I don't even care. I don't care what line I'm on. Somebody has got to talk, to speak up. This is so bad. And by the way, I was very friendly to Miss Stormy. Like I said, this is what the artist rendering of the courtroom looked like. I mean, does that look like a nun to you? It looks like a has-been porn star to me. That's what it looks like. All right, come on, folks. Give me a friggin' break here. Let's play one more, and then we will have to take a commercial break, and we'll come back right to it. But here's CNN. We're going to, like I said, we're going to go back and forth here a little bit. Actually, I'm going to be a little bit fairer to CNN. I think they get one more clip. if I remember correctly. We'll see.
Casey?
Just one thing that I've been sort of noticing as this has gone on is that there have been a couple times where she seems to be cracking a joke, trying to get a reaction from the jury, and our reporters in the room have noted that the jury hasn't seemed to respond
No, they're
to
taking
that.
their job seriously.
I mean, what do you make of that?
Humor is risky in the court.
Hold on. First of all, humor is very risky. If you're not funny, don't do it, because the jury will not like you. And if the jury does not like you, they will never, ever, ever believe you. All right? Almost never. It's almost impossible. They have to like you to want to believe you. Even if they're hearing your testimony through, and by the way, I literally wrote the book on this. It's on Big Data Poll. You can go find it. Even if they're filtering what they hear through their belief systems, as jurors do, and I'm trying to simplify this a little bit, but there are different kinds of personalities. There are different kinds of categories of people that we put them in, what category they fall under. And of course, their personalities, their traits, their characters, that also mix with their belief systems, and they filter what they hear, the story that they hear through those belief systems. And if they don't like the prosecutor, or they don't like the jury, or they don't like one of the, whatever it may be, they don't like the attorney in the case, right? For instance, the jury liked Jose Baez in the Casey Anthony trial. The lawyer that Laura used to work for was over there hugging her the whole time, right? You remember that, Laura? You remember Kathy?
Listen, I should say I did not like the client whatsoever, but
brilliant.
Law is law, and
brilliant.
You have to be able to convict with unreasonable, like 100%, like.
Oh yeah, Jose punched holes all through his.
And the failure falls on the state. So
the prosecutor blew that case. But by the way, what happened? He got caught in a lie. The jury caught him in a lie. And
that was over.
Once they found out that he was lying to them, it was over. One time, sometimes that's all it takes. One time.
Let's not count how many times Stormy has lied, recanted. No, I didn't mean it. Oh yes, I do mean it.
Yeah, Laura, so what is it? Either it didn't happen and you wished it did because you could put it in your book, or you're an extortionist scumbag who is out for money. Which one is it? And a liar and an extortionist, because the only one who committed a crime here, if you take the prosecution story at face value, which I don't, because it's not true. This didn't happen, Laura. This obviously did not happen. This affair did not happen. All right. But even if it did, it sounds like she wanted it to, and it didn't. And right. And by the way, for people who don't know this, these women like her, they try to entrap and extort old men like this all the time. Old rich men, like all the time. All the time.
And disclaimer, I just want to put a disclaimer out there. Listen, I don't care what your profession is. Like you want to be a porn star, you do you, boo. But when you extort people, that's when you become the hoe. Okay, I just want to clarify that, because it's not something that is cool. Like, you want to go hook it on the corner, that's your problem. You do you, boo. Do I approve? No. Is it my cup of tea? No. Am I going to condemn you? No, because I'm taught to love everybody, right? So what she's
the oldest profession in the world.
Yes, and what she's doing is condemning herself in all shapes and forms, and she's like a fool.
I get along with Brandy, no problem. I don't begrudge her for what she does. I don't begrudge her for what she does. It's up to her. I mean, she's actually conservative. She's conservative. I'm telling you, she's conservative. But she doesn't do this crap. You know what I'm saying? She makes an honest living doing what she's doing. At least that's the difference here. This is a dishonest living. This is a dishonest person who, now that she didn't age like Brandy, and she didn't have the opportunities, in that line of work. So now instead she's going to go on and do what so many others do, which is try to profit off of, she's going to try to profit off of relationships that she's had in the past. And I don't mean sexual relationships. I mean, you're going to meet people, in different walks of life and society. And it's so easy for women like her to try to entrap, extort rich men, like this, and that's what she is. So again, from what I was told, the jury was looking at her with contempt. They were looking at her with disgust. When she would make jokes, they shook their head like, this isn't funny, So when you have multiple jurors doing that, even if they can't stand Donald Trump, and then, it is what, and I think the prosecutor thought this was going to work for them. I don't think. They thought that this was going to work for them. Why? Because everything that we have told you about this jurisdiction, this is somewhere where Donald Trump cannot get a fair trial. This is somewhere where Donald Trump is going to get the shaft because, just statistically, there are too many people who politically, ideologically, they will not be able to get past those biases. I think this is the worst thing. They should have just they should have put on a reasonably ethical case and allowed that natural inclination to play out. But it's too late. Like, you can't change course now, folks. The prosecutor cannot change course. And if she does, it doesn't matter. It won't matter because the jury will see through it. They will. So they better hope this case is strong enough and their ideology is strong enough, because on the personal level here, they lost it with this testimony. And by the way, this will get, after yesterday, even if they secure a conviction, which I'm starting to wonder if they can even in this jurisdiction, but let's say they do, because I always expect the worst from people. Even if they do, I've been taught to expect the worst from people. I don't, and I didn't, and thank God for Laura, because I actually always gave people the benefit of the doubt. I think that's the difference between men and women. I think, women have better intuition, and men are a little bit stupid, and they're like, you're a man until you're not, to me, kind of thing.
Stupid. Yeah. Not stupid. That's
men.
You're not stupid. You're naive. That's
it.
The answer.
There's no doubt there is a sense of naivete in there. There is, because you want to give another man, especially, the benefit of the doubt until that man proves himself not to be a man. And every guy wants to do that. Or every real guy wants to do that. And that's not a good way to live your life. It's not, because people, unfortunately, will let you down more than they will justify prove themselves. Right. All right. So you know what? Let's real quick take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll do another clip here. I did just run this one, right? I did indeed. All right. Just unbelievable crap. Unbelievable crap. Listen. Are you struggling with tax debt? The IRS, they breathing down your neck? If you owe taxes and you don't know where to turn, I'm telling you, it's Tax Relief Helpers. Tax Relief Helpers is a team of experienced tax attorneys, enrolled agents, and accountants. They've been resolving tax issues for over 20 years. Believe me, folks, they have seen it all. You need a team. If you have these issues, you need a team like this on your side to stop the nasty letters, the wage garnishments, and even the audits. Here's how it works. You start with a private consultation, and it is a conversation, at no cost to you. Nothing. Zero. Nada. Then they'll do a thorough tax debt report to see exactly what the IRS is seeing. They even have a special insider phone line to the IRS to help speed things up. Tax Relief Helpers will build your case, save you time, endless paperwork. They're tough negotiators. So tough, even their competitors hire them. The best part, they get results. Remember, tax problems don't solve themselves. Call Tax Relief Helpers today and start your journey toward tax resolution. The number's on the screen, and by the way, it's in the description in the video as well. 888-508-5797. 888-508-5797. Tell them the People's Pundit sent you if you want, or you could just visit them at taxreliefhelpers.com. That's taxreliefhelpers.com. And if you do fill out their online consultation thing, when they do ask where you heard this from, you could definitely put People's Pundit. Look, don't wait. If you got these issues, folks, you need help, call Tax Relief Helpers now. Get your life back on track and leave the tax troubles behind. All right. Sometimes it feels like the end of the world, but it's not when you have help. It's not. All right. Yeah. So let's kick this. All right. I really want to go to the other one, but let's go back to Fox for a second. And then before I'm trying to end with like two people who are on different sides of this. Well, no, they're not on different sides of the spectrum. They're both left wingers. Both of them are, in fact, left wingers. However, one is now hated by many on the left because of his fidelity, speaking of fidelity, to the Constitution and to our system, the rule of law, the law, itself matters more to him than his politics do. And that's means a lot in my book.
Whoever paid for Stormy Daniels' silence deserves a refund at this point, because we've heard every dirty detail and all of it's completely irrelevant. And in fact, it should never have come in. I know there's been a lot of legal pundits saying that, but under the rules of evidence, this is inadmissible evidence. It has nothing to do with the charges. It should not have come in. It does probably constitute what would be considered reversible error.
It's reversible error. She's the only one that when it's sifting through all these clips, she's the only one who brought up reversible error that said probably or was equivocal, was equivocating about it. Folks, this is irreversible error. All right. What does that mean? It means it's such a mistake. It's so prejudiced that the defendant has now lost his ability to get a fair trial. And this is, by the way, again, Harvey Weinstein in this jurisdiction, he had dealt with this. And even though he's the world's biggest scumbag and one of the biggest sexual predators out there, the fat slob that he is, they had to let him off in the interest of justice with this. But again, it takes years. So where's Trump going to go to get his reputation back? He's going to have to go to a higher court if they get a conviction, but it will be way too late at this point. Again, though, what Katie is saying here is, why did they put this woman on the stand? Paying for her silence was worthless, a waste of money. You should have let her speak. She's so bad, lacks all credibility, isn't funny and thinks she isn't a victim and pretends to be. I mean, she is the perpetrator here. Even if you take the process, this is why I'm telling you, this would be so hard for a normal jury to soak up. I'm really, really, really doubting whether or not ideology will prevail in this battle that's going to go on in the heads of these jurors, because this is so egregious. I really do wonder. Even if they accept the prosecutor's version of events, right? You have the prosecutor tries to tell their story, the defense tries to tell theirs. Even if they accept the prosecutor's version of events, then she's nothing but a lying, extortionist, scumbag gold digger. And she's the criminal here, folks. Don't you understand that? She's the criminal. Extortion is illegal, not some stupid, weird, novel legal theory where there's really no crime and you have to try to make it out like it's worse so you can point to a campaign finance violation that doesn't exist. And we know that because there was a real case of this in the case of John Edwards, that he was let off because it was deemed not even to be a crime, for crying out loud. So forget about trying to find some legal theory to prove a crime that doesn't exist, to fabricate one. She's the one who committed an actual crime under the letter of the law. If you buy the prosecutor's story, this went way worse. Go ahead, Laura. I know you want to say something. This went way worse.
Well, I'm just saying that I think all the male jurors on the jury are going to have a huge problem swallowing this pill, because they're going to look at this and they're going to be like, if we let this go, this is precedent now for every future case of every person who wants to extort another person.
Yep. That's such a good point. That's a really, really good point. I mean, we'll just have to see. But that's actually another point altogether. They better be beta. If I'm the prosecutor, I want authoritarians who are beta in personality. They hold obviously very liberal beliefs. and they will ignore exactly what Laura just said, because even if it's a moderate who could possibly be some tendencies towards authoritarianism, but they also have, they're not really, it's wrong to say gender biases. They're just sympathetic to gender, certain things dealing with their own gender. Sort of like, by the way, any young black man who knows what it's like to be harassed by a police officer would be sympathetic to something along the lines of a narrative like that. This would be a lot for somebody who's in the middle to ignore. A lot. And again, a grand jury is very different, folks, than an actual jury. And we'll have to see. I know the jury absolutely favored the prosecution here. There's no doubt. And by the way, Judge Merchan made sure of that, because he did not allow for adequate vetting during voir dire to come up, even if Trump's legal team had done their homework quickly and did a dive into their social media and whatever. There's a whole lot of stuff we do. Even if they were able to do all of that in such a short amount of time, because it was. Now, there are a lot of judges who don't like to give a lot of time for voir dire, but getting back to that in a second, even if Trump's team was able to do that, they didn't have enough time to really make the case as to why those people should not be on the jury. It's just, but they didn't. And I'm telling you, I don't know for sure, but I'm telling you, just from how it went down, it doesn't appear that they had enough time to do that much of a dive. But anyway, going back to it just as a matter of process, there are some judges who really respect the right of the defendant to go through voir dire thoroughly and will give you enough time to do it. And then there are some who just don't care. They don't care. And that's honestly a flaw in the system. It is. I'm not sure it should be up to the discretion of the judge how much time is allocated toward vetting jurors. That should be kind of like, the defendant has a right to a speedy trial, but if there's, obviously that's on their side. So in the case of the documents charges, for instance, that works against Trump, because there are just so many things, so many procedures, so much discovery that in order for him to get an adequate defense, he needs time to do, right? So this is something that I think maybe in the future we need to talk more about and work on. Should it be the discretion of the judge whether or not a defendant got adequate time to vet the jury? And some of them give no credibility whatsoever to the concept of voir dire, and they have no respect for it whatsoever. And it's frankly unbelievable. I don't know how you could, as a judge, because you're obviously somewhat smart, you have got to have some intellect there, because you got to where you are, unless of course you were just nepotism, or your buddy helped you get there, whatever it may be. But you have to be, in most cases, have some level of intelligence. And obviously a person's experiences shape who they are, or shape their beliefs, and we need to know about them beforehand. In a civil rights case, for instance, right? If you have a case, I don't know, let's pretend, let me phrase it as one that I worked on without just saying it. Let's say there is a popular sheriff in an urban area. And let's say he runs the jail and he's a political figure, right? But this jail beats the hell out of minorities. They're abusive. And there are myriad other issues that are going on in that jail. But the family of one is suing because he was beaten to death. It's on tape, whatever. If you have a jury, and on that jury, the foreman, for instance, let's call him a 35-year-old man. He's all right. He's successful, working dude. But when he was younger, when he was 6, his dad was killed by a police officer, was killed by a gangbanger or a criminal or somebody who fits the mold of the would-be defendant, the now deceased person that the defendant is suing over. Okay. Obviously, Obviously, that foreman is going to try to steer the jury in his direction. And that direction is going to be unfavorable to the client. And I said defendant, I mean, the one who's bringing the case. In that case, the city, county, whomever, they are the defendants in that case. But no doubt he would have. You guys ever watch American History X? Hold on, bear with me for a second. Let's talk about. Well, let me give you a great example on how experiences can do this. Have you ever seen American History X with Ed Norton and I think it's Edward Furlong, right? Okay, Ed Norton plays the older brother. The other dude, Furlong, is the kid from Terminator 2 who grew up to look nothing like he did when he was a young, cute little kid. Anyway, sorry, it's just true. When he is in high school, he has this black teacher who's really like expanding his mind, helping him. But his dad is basically a racist Los Angeles cop or whatever the hell. Not Los Angeles, but it's close to it. It's Southern California. And his dad is eventually killed by somebody. He becomes a skinhead, whatever you want to say. It is a great movie spot. He becomes a skinhead, obviously blames everyone from blacks to immigrants to Jews for, having a society where the good guy became the victim and nobody in society cared about it. So he goes to jail after killing, I think he kills, I don't know, one or two. I don't know. They were trying to rob his car. Yeah, but he used excessive force. He curb stomps one dude, breaks his teeth out, shoots some one or two others when he didn't have to. They were running. It was murder or manslaughter at least, but he gets manslaughter. He goes to jail. That same teacher, a black guy, is the only one who cares and comes to see him when he gets raped violently for not sticking with his own crew. Because, of course, especially in that part of the country, if you're in Maricopa County Jail, if you're in one of those jails in Southern California, it's all about race. Race politics, it's sad, but it's true. And white people better stay with white people, vice versa. And he chose not because he thought that they were full of crap. So they're dealing drugs with other races. And anyway, he breaks away and does his own thing. He pays a penalty for it. And Sweeney, the teacher, is the only one who comes to see him and helps him. And then he turns into a different person, a good person. Unfortunately, those sins come back to haunt him later, and I'm not going to give out the rest of the movie for those who don't watch it. However, Edward Norton's experiences as a young man, what happened to his father, changed his personality. He was not like that. And had something not happen later to change that, that would have been we are our experiences. We are our memories. That's who we are. So when people say, oh, it's just so easy to just look past them, it's not. It's at the core of who we are. So anyway, if you had somebody like him on that jury, do you think he would have cared? No, I mean him when he was a skinhead or, white supremacist. Do you think he would care that white cops, black cops even, were beating black men to death in this particular jail? He would not. He would say, you know what? He shouldn't have ended up in jail in the first place. And that's the problem with the black community. And blah, blah, blah. We went over on this tangent. It's not our fault. And that poor sheriff is just trying to do the best job he can. So he's going to justify what essentially is murder. Because when someone's in custody, the state owns their ass. They can't do anything about it but die. That's an abuse of power, but he would overlook it. Believe me, someone like him, he would overlook it. Why am I telling you? Well, I just wanted to give you a good example of this because it is difficult. Even with everything we're going over, it is still very difficult. You have to really make a you-know-what out of yourself. You have to really expose yourself. And that there has to be somebody, one at least, willing to listen. Now, or willing to look past their own preconceived biases and notions in order to get to what is a fair verdict. Unfortunately, one usually isn't enough because I refer to it as bullying, jury bullying. Usually, especially if there's a strong foreman or forewoman, holdouts will be bullied. And I've seen it over and over and over. They get up. All right, you guys go and deliberate. They get up. They take an initial vote. Let's see where we stand. And there will be holdouts. And let's go over it. And eventually, as time goes on, it grinds them down. The juror that is steering the show will grind them down as well. And that's sad because I've talked to holdouts. I've sat down and had conversations with them. I've talked to holdouts who voted eventually to convict people that were wrongfully convicted and then have to live with that. Believe me, they are not thinking about it until it's too late and that happens. Then the guilt sets in. Then the guilt.
And the depression. Serious
depression.
man.
Oh, these people suffer. You know that, Lord. These people suffer. I mean, it weighs on them. In any event, by the way, like the Peterson trial was a great example of a you-know-what show because voir dire was not done correctly. And by the way, the judge would not, is very similar to Judge Mearshon, obviously had a bias against Scott and would not. He removed the juror who went home and said something really stupid, didn't even get home, said something to a reporter that was stupid, but still on the line. It didn't have to remove Travis from that jury, but they did. And then they had an alternate brought in who was an absolute nutcase who, no matter what, Scott was guilty to her. No matter what. There could have been exonerating evidence, of which there was. It wouldn't have mattered. And later, she took the holdouts, and there were about 3 of them, and she used pseudoscience with the dog. But the dog sniffed it. That's what eventually got those 3 to change their mind. I know. And one of them, particularly one of the men, is beside himself. And Scott has exhausted all of his recourse. It's over. There's nothing he can do on appeal. It's a wrap. So he's it's done. He will spend the rest of his life there. So there's nothing to do. And that's something people have to live with. But believe me, he wasn't thinking about it and that living with that at the time. He wasn't. And remember, you're deliberating, you're tired, you're cranky, you want to see your family, you want to get back to work, you got bills to pay. There are
other jurors are bullying you.
But that's what I'm saying. The bullying is very effective because of those other things. So eventually the truth is a lot of those holdouts want someone to talk them into conviction. They do. They want someone to do it. They have to alleviate their conscience for the moment because of all the other things that I just rattled off. They're weighing on them as well. So they want somebody to say it's okay, convict, even though you don't want to. And it works a lot. A lot. All right. Geez, did I play this one? I can't remember. Yeah. Right? I played it. Yeah, there. It's up there, right there.
Likely the prosecution.
No, shut up. All right. The next clip. And then we'll go to the reverse of that Hannity episode. We'll have to reverse and back it up because I really wanted to end with what he said first. Greg Jarrett obviously brought it up. This is CNN. Listen to this.
The material that came in was not relevant to this criminal case at all. And I think it shows that she was trying to get Trump. I actually thought there was a motive there. She said she hates him. She said she'd like to see him in prison. I think she was purposely throwing out this stuff to make sure the jurors were prejudiced, particularly the women jurors, but probably half of the men too, were really put off.
Wow. So what she's saying is they did this on purpose. And I agree with her. This is, by the way, she was a U.S. District Court judge. I agree with her, but it did not work. All right. So the game here was to make women disgusted by Donald Trump and make some of those beta men disgusted by Donald Trump. But because of how she came off, again, judging by what I was told about the reactions, and we're not the only one. I mean, folks, there were people rolling their eyes at her. There were people, making these faces. Like you could see their faces of disgust. That is a backfire. They weren't faces of disgust toward Donald Trump. They were faces of disgust toward her. And when you feel that level of disgust or maybe even contempt for somebody like that, or you just don't think they're credible, whatever may be damning to the defendant that is coming out of their mouth is kind of just rolling over their shoulder, like rolling off their shoulder. It's not really hitting them that difficult and hitting them that hard because they're just kind of like, yeah, yep. Yippity yip. All I hear is yip. Oh man, we got a lot to go through here because I have some other stuff. But I'm gonna have to take a commercial break for then. But do I want to play the last clip? You know what? We'll play the last clip. We'll stop. We'll be seamless about this. Play the last clip. We'll stop. We'll do commercial. We'll play it and we'll continue playing that clip because there's a couple of places I want to stop at here. All right, but let's roll this back to Hannity. And you heard Greg Jared refer to Alan Dershowitz, Professor Dershowitz. Let's hear what he said that Greg was responding to.
Maybe he'll die. Here with reaction to all of our top stories tonight, Fox News legal analyst, best-selling author Greg Jarrett, and Harvard law professor, also best-selling author Alan Dershowitz. Professor, there's a lot of meat on that bone. I want to get your thoughts on all of it.
Well, first of all, there was clear reversible error today committed by the judge and by the prosecution under the reasoning of the recently reversed Harvey Weinstein case. So much information came out that was utterly irrelevant. Let's start with whether they had sex at all. Utterly irrelevant. Yes. The only issue is whether she threatened to expose him and whether she extorted him and whether he then paid money to avoid the embarrassment to his family, to his business, to his children, and, according to the prosecution, to help himself get reelected. The issue of what actually happened is utterly irrelevant. And then
okay, we're just going to pause right there real quick. But exactly. He just said what I was saying before. Even if you buy this line, she's the one who committed a crime here. This is just, it's unbelievable. And he said clear, reversible error. And I don't know how you could argue anything else. I really don't. More from Professor Dershowitz at the other end of this break because it's already 1:04, and I'm hoping to get to Daniel's article too, by the way, on one of the Trump prosecutions, which is just fantastic. But if we don't, I will share it because if you have not read this, you got to read it. There's a lot, even though Daniel wants to. He's a lawyer. He wants the process to work, even though. That's the case. He's been remarkably accurate. The other day when he was on, he was like, if I would have told you this a year and a half ago, I would have got a lot of things wrong. Actually, Daniel's gotten a lot right if you follow his Substack. A lot right. All right. But we'll be back after 60-second break from our sponsors. Let's pay the bills. Speaking of which, bills. We got the economy coming up later today. All right. Wholesale inventories, wholesale inflation, consumer sentiment, you name it. Crap. Given everything that's happening in the world today, right now, it's no surprise that a lot of people are looking for a safer place to invest their money. Stocks can be unpredictable. Right now, if you go to CNN right now, by the way, we're going to read an article from CNN in a second. Go look and see what their index is that's driving the market. Fear. Stocks are unpredictable because of it. Let's face it. Inflation really has an impact on the value of currencies, obviously. That's why I want to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Freedom Gold USA. If you've ever thought about investing in gold or silver and you're just interested in diversifying your maybe you're just interested in getting some diversification in your portfolio, Freedom Gold USA is definitely a company you should check out. What I like about Freedom Gold is that they're all about helping you make smart investment choices in precious metals. They believe the more you know, the better. So they offer free investment guides, consultations that, by the way, they give you the information that they think you need to be confident to make a sound decision. And there's no pressure, no hard sell. A lot of them out there, let's get real. Same thing with brokerage firms for non-currency investments. They are high pressure sales, not Freedom Gold. That's what I like about them. There's many other things that make them set them apart. They guarantee competitive pricing on some of the best quality and purity gold and silver you'll find. You're getting a solid deal and you don't have to worry about extra fees. They offer free shipping, insurance on all orders. Plus, you might even get some free silver on qualifying purchases. And they give you a $500 credit toward opening a gold or silver IRA. That's nice. Here's the best part. Dealing with Freedom Gold USA is simple and hassle-free. You won't get any pushy sales tactics. I hate that. I used to do it for a living. Can't stand it. They're all about helping you reach your financial goals in a way that works for you. So if you want to learn more, I recommend giving Freedom Gold USA a call. Numbers in the description. So is the website. But here we go again, up on the screen, 888-279-3592. 888-279-3592. Or you could check out their website, also in the description, up on the screen, freedomgoldusa.com/rich. freedomgoldusa.com/rich, as in me, as in get rich, as in my name. freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Find out about their latest special offers. They got stuff going on over there, and see what kind of deals you might qualify for. One more time with the number, 888-279-3592. And sure, if you want, you can tell them the People's Pundit sent you. If you go to that link anyway, then it's going to tell you that. All right. Interesting text message I just got, Laura. Got to tell you about it off air. People are going to be like, oh, man, that's not fair. Ooh. I'll tell locals about that later. All right. Where were we? Old Stormy. And Professor Dersh. More with Dr. Dersh here.
Keyword old.
Laura, come on now. Old Stormy. She ain't the Stormy Daniels from my youth. That's for damn sure. But who stays young forever, Laura? But I will say this. I wouldn't be surprised if old Stormy was a drinker, a heavy drinker. Something, and it's not fair to you ladies. And tell you what, I'm glad Laura is not a drinker.
I think she's more than drink.
Yeah, me too. But it's not fair to women. Men, they beat they beat the hell out of themselves and they drink like a lush. They get a bad headache the next day. Sure, they can get fat and fatter and look like crap, compared to what they used to look like. But women, alcohol is hard on women. I've seen some really beautiful women just transformed over. Deteriorate is the word. Over alcohol use. And it's not, I feel bad for you ladies. I really do. Because it's like a nature double standard. It really is. Same thing for when Laura and I are always lazy. And then we get back into the swing of thing. She always gets pissed off because it takes me a week of getting back in it before I see some,
It's like a 1 to 3 week ratio. Me 3 weeks, him 1, and I get mad.
Men bounce back quicker, muscle memory or something. I get on the bench for a couple of days, and I'm like, right, or at least you're not going to regain everything right away, but you get back a lot quicker. And then men plateau, so do women, but men plateau. We just happen to get results faster. At least I believe we do. And it's the case with Laura and I for sure. She has to work harder. All right. Let's get back to Professor Dershowitz.
Then we get to the details, the silk pajamas, the kind of lotion he was wearing. I can't imagine how the Court of Appeals in New York that reversed the Harvey Weinstein conviction, which was a harder case to reverse, wouldn't reverse this conviction if it got up there. I would certainly recommend to the prosecutors in this case that they study the Weinstein case very carefully, because it gives a roadmap to what you can't do. And this prosecutor is just following the roadmap of what you can't do. And now the judge says, well, he didn't object enough. In the Court of Appeals, they have a concept called chattering magpie. The courts warn lawyers, don't object too much. Object once, and then just keep quiet. Don't become a chattering magpie. And this judge then says, well, they didn't object enough. Yeah, they objected before. Yeah, they objected during. Yeah, they objected after. Yeah, they sought a dismissal and a mistrial. That's not good enough for me, Judge Marchand, because I'm going to convict this guy no matter what. And I'm certainly not going to give a mistrial, because if I get a mistrial, it may be tried before a different judge, and then my daughter won't make money off this case. This is such a corrupt case. From beginning to end, it's corrupt. And, you know, again, as somebody who doesn't care as much about politics, but who's devoted his life to the Constitution, this endangers everybody's rights, and every liberal, every conservative, every Trump supporter, every Biden supporter should be appalled by this case and should be complaining about how our Constitution is being weaponized in the interest of partisan politics.
You know, it's irrelevant, immaterial. Greg Jarrett, get your take on today's events and the trial in general.
All right, so that's the other side of that clip, which was basically going to be over anyway. But you know, you heard it loud and clear. There it is. And he said, you know, that it's down. I'm again not a lawyer, but I got to tell you, if you look at both of the cases, it looks very obvious to me. The Weinstein case was a much harder case to get thrown out. This is everything you're not supposed to do. They're doing, and I hate to tell you, okay, New York. You think they didn't know Marshawn's relationship, his daughter, his own views? You think you didn't know that? The DA is not going to bring something in that jurisdiction without knowing. They're all in the same club. They all belong to the same clubs together. They all go to the same steams in the morning. They all go to the same places for lunch. They all go to the same dinners at night. They all go to the same musicals on Broadway. They all go see the new, latest shows together, whatever friggin', Hamiltons, whatever you want to put it. They all do this. They all know each other. There is absolutely no way that they even would have brought this case if they didn't get the hat tip. And, oh, Rich, they're selected at random. Kiss my butt. It's New York. It's corrupt as hell. All right? They'll find the judge who's willing to do this. They'll make sure that judge gets the case, and that judge just will not recuse no matter what is said about them in the paper. And he'll be lauded as a hero later for it by the left. I mean, that's New York. And honestly, as we've talked about this before, I really do feel that this has given Trump something he's never had before. That was relatability. They gave him relatability because so many people have been dealing with this kind of stuff from this, justice system for so long. And now Donald Trump is as the victim of it as well. And they're going to root for him. There's something about the underdog thing in America. Whether he's ahead in the polls or not, everybody knows they're trying to do this to get rid of him. Everybody knows he's the underdog and that the system doesn't want him and that they're going to try to throw him in jail for the rest of his natural life. Everybody knows that. Yet Americans root for the underdog, which is why he, among other things, he's ahead in the state of Pennsylvania by 4 points, according to this new poll. Now, full disclosure. The AARP poll is conducted jointly by Fabrizio and Impact. Tony Fabrizio is a pollster for Trump World. All right. Is he pro-Trump himself? No, he's not. All right. It doesn't take long. All you have to do is go through the Twitter feed. It doesn't take long. You'll see it. And at the same time, the AARP poll, for instance, if you remember, he polled for Blake Masters, his super PAC. He polls for Trump's super PAC. That PAC got a better result in Arizona than AARP, who commissioned the poll, the same poll, not even a few weeks before, folks. It was separated by days. So that AARP poll had a much bigger lead for Mark Kelly. So, for him with AARP as the sponsor to come up with results like this, it must have been really bad in the state of Pennsylvania for Joe Biden. That's all I got to say. All right, hang on. Let me get a sip of water. And while we're at it, let's scroll down so you can see at least the first part of that. If you haven't seen this poll, hang on. I got to open it. It's going to spill everywhere, as always. All right. Former President Trump narrowly 4-point win in the state of Pennsylvania isn't really that narrow at all. narrowly leads President Biden in both the four-way and head-to-head ballots in Pennsylvania. And by the way, that was the case with our Pennsylvania poll too. He was ahead in both. Among voters 50 plus, why does this matter? Let me stand up. Motion creates emotion. Trying to get some circulation, folks. Move that stool over. Yeah, so in the state of Pennsylvania, we had shown this when we were polling leading up into the 2020 election, that there had been, like in 16, Trump had carried seniors. And then in 2020, there were, not, I don't want to say many, but there was a significant enough number of them to be concerned if you're Trump, that were saying, I'm switching and going to Joe Biden. I just can't deal with what, goes on every day, and the boat's constantly rocking. I wish Trump wouldn't do this, wouldn't do that. So we're going with Joe Biden. Oh, by the way, COVID. Okay. Now, instead of that trend continuing, because it has been identified by pollsters and others, that this was one of the demographic groups that is trending Democratic when so many are not. Seniors. And then, of course, you hear about the educated white suburban woman, right? All the time. But in this case, with seniors, here in Michigan, it's a big deal. Why? Because the older you are, the more connection to the Democratic Party you're going to have. Parents voted for them, right? Sean Parnell, I can't tell you how many times on Battleground Live, which, by the way, is tonight, 5 p.m., I can't tell you how many times we've talked about this. Like, the fact that, well, let me hold off on that. We may get to that later tonight. Well, that detailed about it. But, the fact that these older, whiter Democrats are not shifting further to the Democratic Party, and in fact, look like they're reversing back to Trump, is a really big deal. Really big deal. Among 50 plus, Trump leads by a wide margin on both ballots, while voters 18 to 49 are closely divided. Within voters 50 plus, Trump has a sizable lead with 50 to 64-year-olds, but the race is very close among seniors. On the four-way, 19% of voters, 18 to 49, either choose a third-party candidate or an undecided, compared to just 10% of voters, 50 plus. Biden improved. Yeah, that you're going to see that everywhere. Some of these, this is one reason why I do think that third-party candidates, their vote share largely are more likely to continue to decline. And yes, I saw Kennedy challenge Trump to a debate. The fact of the matter is, it's only one poll that shows him competitive if you race him against Biden and Trump. I would wait for further media confirmation of that before I go running around with that claim like he did, because he paid Zogby for a poll. Well, John Zogby sometimes comes out with results that are very different than other people. I know why he picked Zogby. I mean, they're both basically ostracized from the Democratic Party. All right. But the fact that younger people who are really just undecided are the ones who are saying they're going to vote third party, while older voters are voting more two party, they're voting two party the way they have, very similar to those in the past. Well, in 16, when Gary Johnson was polling, I think in upwards of 7% in our poll, I just looked at this not long ago. Oh no, it was 9%. That's right, 8.9. It wasn't only due to young people. Younger people sure were more likely, but it didn't look like this among older voters. So that's whatever that may be worth, it's worth mentioning right now. It's just there are differences. In any event, his share still did decline, as did Stein's from her high. They got a significant number for third-party candidates, but nothing too crazy like a Ross Perot, 19% of the vote. No. And I suspect some of these younger people will either not vote at all. Some will go home to Biden because they're younger and are Democrats. And then some, probably those who are younger but newer, Yeah, I mean, they'll end up. Yeah, I do think Trump will gain with these younger voters, and I just don't. It remains to be seen once they start to split. I do think they'll lose interest in RFK. It remains to be seen once that happens how much of that will actually go to Trump. But in many cases, especially if they're double no's, they're no-nos, meaning they don't like either candidate, then chances are many of them will just stay home. If not, it'll be interesting and we'll see. But I'm unconvinced, is my point, that Robert Kennedy is going to end up with like 15% of the vote share. I'm just unconvinced. All right. It would take a while. We have a lot of time to go. There's there's 6 months down the line here. Johnson didn't start to fade until very, very close to the election. All right. There are large gender, race, education, and regional differences in planned vote for president in 2024. Trump is ahead in large part due to more consolidated support from Republicans than Biden is getting from Democrats, while Trump also has a slight edge with independents. All right. Back in 2016, I'd have to go and look it up to make sure, but I want to say that our electorate after rake weighting was like D+3 in Pennsylvania, and Trump was taking more of that, the Democratic vote, than Hillary was taking of the Republican vote, which already was a net benefit to Trump. Last cycle, 2020, it was about even. So if Trump is doing better with his base, which every poll says he is, if he's doing better with his base, then again, I just don't see how independents are not going to break for Biden the way they did in 2020. If Trump has a more consolidated base, Pennsylvania was like R+1 in 2020, the electorate. So if you're doing better with your base, which happens to be more of the electorate than your opponent is, then yeah, that crossover vote is just going to be devastating is my point. All right. Interesting point here. Let's go fan forward a little bit. Oh, wait, did I miss it? No, I didn't. But hang on one second. I'm less concerned about the top line numbers. By the way, this is a lot like what we saw in the phone component of our poll in Pennsylvania. It was the online component that blew McCormick off, that allowed Casey to blow McCormick off the map. Although still, Casey did not hit 50, mid 40s to high 40s, depending on the ballot structure. So he did, that's no pushover. All right. There's something I'm looking for here. Where on earth is it? Anyway, what I wanted to show you, and I'll just say it, is, here it is. Notice that Biden's favorability and approval rating are very much alike. They almost mirror each other identically. With Trump's, that's not the case. His retroactive approval is good, is hot, is positive. His favorability is negative. So why am I pointing this out? And it's still negative, but it's less so. By the way, it's even more than you would think than approval. Why am I pointing this out? Because there are people that shows you those results tell you that there are people who say, I don't like him, but man, he was a good president. Because it's a retrospective approval rating. Thinking back to when Trump was in office, did you approve or disapprove? So many people are saying, I have at least a somewhat unfavorable image of Donald Trump. Many of them are still going to vote for him because he did a good job. So favorability in this case can be a little bit misleading. All right, but that was good that Tony did that this way. I always look at it myself. I don't lay it out. I'll look at it myself. How is it a big deal? Is the spread significant? He chose to make it a slide and actually point it out, which is interesting. I should go over that more with you guys when we do those polls. Sometimes we don't do both, but when we do, a lot of times we kind of blast right over it. And this gave me a good opportunity to show you what I see sometimes. All right, makes sense. Senate, much closer, by the way. Mood of the country. This is a huge deal. Huge numbers, especially among people who are 50 and older, think that the country is headed on the wrong track, which is going to get us to where we're going here. Immigration and border security for voters over 50 is the number one issue. Inflation, rising prices, number two. Why would that be? They're on a fixed income. They only have what they have. And they certainly don't want to think about having to go back to work to get another job. Believe that. They're not going to want to do that. All right, they're done. They're in the golden years. They're supposed to have enough. Inflation is not supposed to eat their retirement plan away. All right. Will it allow me to do it? By the way, will blow through this because I have articles I want to read you. But wholesale inventories today. We've talked about this with the Institute for Supply Management survey, doing a great job, kind of keeping track of some of this. Negative again, or keeping track of the panels as to why. And we've talked about this importance of this number when Trump left the White House and Biden came in. A lot of people just put the brakes on inventories. Here's where we're at. Month over month for the month of March, because of course it's a lagging indicator. It had previously in February been up 0.5 point. The consensus this month was down 0.4 of a point. So basically erasing all of the previous month's gain. And that's what we have again. Consensus ranged from negative 0.4 to a high of negative 0.1. Came in right on the consensus, which is negative. It's a bomb, folks. It's a bomb. Also, when you're asking people how they feel about these different things, the survey of consumers. We're about to get their first reading for the new month for May on Friday. We're going to get that reading, but we had the final for the month of March. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? What did I do with you? Here we are. There you are. We got that final and we didn't go over it. And I want to just show you how terrible this really looks when you put it up on the screen. My God. Everyone's all ecstatic. In the Biden White House, the survey of consumers gets a 79 and they're doing freaking cartwheels. Look at where it was before COVID. Again. Sad. I look at this and it makes me sad. Because I look at it and I think, God, coupled with solid home, housing, because the inventories were low, coupled with, decent numbers for, thank you, Laura. Coupled with decent housing numbers and everything, man, the economy would be soaring. Look at it right before the pandemic. Under Donald Trump, the survey of consumers hit all-time highs. It was screaming before COVID happened. New residential construction was kicking up. Builder confidence was through the roof. I mean, just so you have an idea of how different confidence is under Biden, there you go. You're talking 20 points. We're back to the new norm here, I see. You can see the survey of consumers publishing results month over month with that chart. And you can see the month Donald Trump takes the reins. It explodes. That's the second year on that chart right there. You can see it. That is right after inauguration. Boom! And actually, you can see it rising all before because they know he's going to be president. You can see it rising. They're seeing headlines about the National Association of Home Builders. They're seeing headlines from the National Association of Small Business. Everything's hitting record highs, gain this much, soared to this level in anticipation. I really, really got to tell you something. Outside, putting Trump aside, I miss those headlines. It said our country was really positive. And economically, we could do so much. But haters going to hate. And that couldn't last forever, could it? Another one I want you to see.
Wait, but I want to mention the detriment of us. Yeah. Like it was at all costs. They did not care.
Yeah. Hey, it was inconvenient economically. Remember? Fauci said, I understand it's inconvenient economically for you. Inconvenient economically, you little dwarf? That's all you got to say for yourself?
And then you had the audacity to buy him for Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, that was an accident. He's gone now. Jingle and bam, the mini Dr. Fauci's from Hobby Lobby are gone. For those who don't know what we're talking about, if you're a member of our locals and have been for a while, you remember the Elves poll. Magical or a Fauci nightmare. Fauci nightmare won in a landslide because I didn't realize until after I got it. They were molded after Anthony Fauci. There's no doubt. It looked like if you could shrink Anthony Fauci down even further, which I heard is hard, if you could shrink him down even further and put like little pointy shoes on him and put him in a Christmas movie, that's what he would look like. Unbelievable. Let me see though. No thanks. Get rid of this. Are we still at the same with the index? Yup. 39. Fear is driving the market. All right. So not only do I think it's important we keep up with economic news for the sake of keeping up economic news, but I think it's important because it'll give us context. And when we see these numbers, we say to ourselves, well, that makes sense. We were just talking about young people. Who rents? Who buys for the first time? Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
I'm saying it's also indicative of what will happen in voting blocks as well. The way
absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So, like, when every pollster gets these crazy numbers with younger voters, and by the way, Trump was down 1 point in Pennsylvania with younger voters. Insane. Well, maybe when we read this from Elizabeth Berschwald and CNN, we wouldn't be so surprised. For renters, the chance of owning a home is going from bad to worse. Now, why didn't this matter in the Obama era? Because did these youngins have this in their head? Recent memory, again, our memories make us and inform us on who we are. Did they have the memory of an economy that was strong when Obama was president? No, they did not. When Obama was trying to pass the reins off to Hillary Clinton, did they have a memory of that? No. They had a memory that Republicans suck and George Bush allowed the housing crisis to happen. Hell, even blamed him for it. They said it's his fault. He did it. His policies did it. How many times did you hear a young person say, tax cuts for the rich crashed the economy? No, actually the Community Reinvestment Act and then investment banks being greedy and bundling securities crashed the economy. But they had no memory of that. Now, very different. They have the memory of Trump's economy. A version of this story first appeared on CNN Business before the Bell newsletter. Not a subscriber, you can sign up right here. Blah, 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 blah. New York, CNN headquarters. The American dream of ownership is looking more like a nightmare. Oh, man. What a bad first sentence for President Biden 6 months before an election. With inflation heating up again, it gets better for him, don't it? The Federal Reserve is in no position to consider lowering interest rates at its upcoming meeting. That helped push the average fixed rate on the 30-year mortgage above 7.2 after 5 straight weeks of increases. Why does that matter? You're going to pay more ultimately for your home when interest rates are higher. The loan, the payment itself every month is going to be more if you have a 7.2 or above interest rate compared to me, who got my rate under Trump, 2.9. Even if you bought the same house as me, built the same house as me, whatever, if you want to be totally accurate, you're going to pay a lot more for it. Not to the builder, just to the builder. When you go to finance the rest of it or whatever it is you plan on doing, 7.2, 7 point whatever, is a whole hell of a lot more, even though the premium on the mortgage may not be all that different. And it would be actually, because house prices have soared, because everybody knows nobody's going to buy homes in this situation. But here's the catch. Actually, wait, on top of that, households are bracing for a resurgence in home prices over the next year after they had started to ease back last year. But here's the catch. Renting is also far from a bargain these days. Consumers are gearing up for even bigger increases compared to expected rises in mortgage rates over the next year, the New York Fed survey found. If I can get to it, there's another article all about younger people and this. The issue of rent affordability is particularly pronounced in New York City, where housing costs have always been notoriously high compared to other parts of the country, absent a brief respite during the pandemic. Yeah, when you can get everything on the cheap, which, by the way, rich people do, which, by the way, is why that pandemic re-widened the wealth gap that was shrinking under Trump. And that other piece, by the way, that I was talking about, is like, okay, well, they can't afford houses. Forget about the houses. Forget about rent. They're borrowing like crazy to pay regular, everyday bills and everyday stuff, you know? Where is this coming from? The treasury, you know? I mean, you know, but anyway. Where are we? The issue of rent affordability has been an issue in New York, but what's making the burden weigh even heavier is rents in the city grew 7 times faster than wages last year, according to an analysis Zillow published Tuesday. If you're looking to buy a house, Zillow is a really cool website. Right, Laura? Laura used to love Zillow when we were doing our thing. That's the biggest gap across 50 of the nation's largest metro areas. Nationally, however, Americans' wages increased at a faster pace than their rents last year. Yes, nationally, but not faster than inflation. Their wages were evaporated by inflation. The Fed's role. The jobs market the Fed has sought to preserve while reining in inflation is working against New York City renters. Kenny Lee, a senior economist at Zillow-owned StreetEasy, said in a statement on Tuesday, that's because new home construction in the city is especially struggling to keep up with the demand from the availability of jobs. So, this is why you really need the economy firing on all cylinders, because one supports the other and vice versa. And when you don't, you get issues like this. Don't get me wrong. There was certainly an ironing out period. 6 months from now, things are going to be so bad. I don't know what the hell any president can do to get in there and change it, but certainly would hope it would help just to avoid continuing with somebody who is too old and too stupid to realize how bad this is. Quote. Yes, quote. Because we can skip over the rest of that. It's possible that inflation would have gotten back to target quicker if the Fed had hiked sooner. And this is from Aditya Biev, a senior U.S. economist at Bank of America, telling CNN. If that happened, the central bank may not have needed to keep rates at the current high levels for so long. That could have helped prevent mortgage rates from rising as high as they are now because, as the Minneapolis Fed president Neil Kashari said in Bloomberg TV interview Tuesday, housing is, quote, traditionally the most interest rate sensitive sector of the economy, unquote. You think? You think? Even if you don't think, even if you think I'm a renter, what do I care? You think your landlord's not passing that off to you? Believe me, they are. They are. However, Biev also said hindsight is 2020, and a lot of the inflation was caused by supply disruptions that the Fed couldn't have prevented. And honestly, a lot of those, which part? The disruptions that happened because he started a war like an idiot in Eastern Europe? Or are we talking about the interruptions that occurred prior to that because people didn't trust Joe Biden and they put a hold on building up business inventories? Slaughterhouse cleaning company fined $649,000 for employing child workers. We don't need to go after that, but my God, nothing but happy days, sunshine news over here, huh? It's one thing after the other. One thing after the other. All right. All right. This is what I'll do, Laura. I'm going to go ahead and provide the link to it. I'll put it up on the screen because I'm looking at it right here and I know it's kind of long because we're running out of time. I'm going to put it up here. People can go check it out and see it. And I'm going to answer some questions. All right. Whoops. Sorry about that, guys. This is Daniel Street's new Substack, Presidential Immunity, the Supreme Court, and Trump. But let me grab some of the questions that Laura had thrown in there. And thank you for the tip, Ryan. Thank you for the tip. Any progress on Steve Boyd? You know what? That's a good question. I'll be honest with you. Totally get lost with everything that was going on. I will circle back. And you know what? Hold on one second. Setting it up. And when I say setting it up, I mean I'm setting a reminder for Laura. Steve Boyd. Interview. Minnesota 7. Although I got to tell you, as always, we are cutting back on, cutting back. We don't have that many guests on the show. I do bring them on when I think they provide value for a specific reason. So I don't want to say we're cutting back on guests, but that's not really accurate. But all right, Brother Patrick. Also, by the way, thanks for the tip. Trump's DOJ should charge Smith with impersonating an official. Payback for the, quote, fraudulent electors scam. Ooh. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Yeah, because, again, like I said on Monday, it's like you don't want to get into the tit for tat. You don't, because like that's the end of it when you do. That's the end of the rule of law. There won't be any rule of law. Like, it's still really tough question for me. I don't know. Maybe you guys don't understand, but I'm sure you do. Do you see the election integrity measures Georgia just passed? How impactful would they be in stopping any fortification? From what I understand, not much. And this is why I would say this. There is something the president said that if you are on Team Trump, you should think about it like this more so than anything else. Too big, too rig. It is absolutely 100% possible. All right. So instead of worrying, about how much Republicans were able to do and get in, would worry more about that because I just don't think any of them have the spine to do what's necessary. For instance, you really want to get rid of absentee ballot mail-in voting. You can't have this. And I know states handle it state by state, but you cannot have these crazy, archaic way of doing it. Like, you just can't. All right, Ryan MP, yep, Ryan MP 911, right? We really need a Barris poll in Minnesota. Ooh, you're like the third person in 24 hours that I've seen write something like that. On locals, on Twitter, on whatever. I'll say something that's totally irrelevant on Twitter. I'll post something that's totally irrelevant, and in the reply, someone will be like, hey, we really need a Barris poll in Minnesota. It's kind of funny, actually, but what do I say to that? I would say probably Michigan first again. Why? Because it's certainly an easier state for Trump to win. If I think I'm seeing certain things with race and ethnicity, then we'll move quicker. We'll just have to figure it out. All right. That's about all Laura threw up in there for right now. I'm sure there was more. Do I want to end with Daniel? Do we have time to read at least some of Daniel's? I'm not sure. But let me get the link and throw it in for everybody. I'm just going to write street, bam, bam. It's really good stuff. If you want to continue on with the narrative that Democrats most definitely hold on one second. Which one was Getter? Did you get it? Hold on. Getter, is it going to let me? Sometimes. Yep, it did. That's why I wrote street, comma, or street, semicolon, the link. Because if I just do it without it, often, it will get flagged. There we go. Yeah, and Sergeant Willie. I just wanted to put this up here, even though Laura normally does this stuff. I wanted to put this up here and just, vote, 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 vote. Sergeant Willie is right. Vote, 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 vote. Never let anybody tell you or convince you that your vote does not count. I still, to this day, no matter how much myself and many others have said it over and over and over again, there are still people who don't understand. I guess, is that what I'm not even understand? There are still, kind of, I guess. I don't know. All right. Boom. Yeah, let's trying to decide what we have time for here. Not much, buddy. Oh, okay. Duh. Perfect thing to end with. We just went over his poll. I put out the link to Dan's article. You should really watch that. Listen to this. This is about, or read it. This is about the Supreme Court listening to the immunity case argument. Daniel's been very thorough about this in the past in our interviews, and what they think, or what he thinks the Supreme Court may think about the preservation of the office after Donald Trump is gone. I mean, you have to really weigh in. Okay, you're a Trump hater. We get it. You got TDS. Don't you care about what you do to the institution when he is gone? And so for all of the people who said, oh, he's a threat to the norms and the institutions that we hold dear, and that are the pillars of democracy. Well, we're not a democracy, okay? We are a self-governing society. We're somewhere between like this weird, kind of republic that has been chipped away at over the years, starting with the progressive era, but we are not a democracy. Either way, all of those people who made those allegations are the ones now who are dismantling the institution and simply concepts of fairness and law and impartiality and justice and everything from attorney-client privilege to the office of the presidency. Be left with nothing. It will be constant retribution, constant. If the president does not have immunity, at least limited for the way, what he did in office, he or she did in office, it will be constant retribution, constant back and forth. The presidency would be neutered. It would be neutered. And the people who occupy the White House permanently, because there are permanent workers there, the people who occupy the offices and the executive buildings, permanently, they will be in charge. And we'll have a rogue Justice Department that's already halfway, I was going to say to Stasi. They're already to Stasi, sadly. Yeah, certain people, and they'll tell you they're on their way to Stasi. All right, but go and check it out, because I want to end with this from Mark Caputo. Good reporter, Mark is. Certainly a lefty, good reporter, fair guy, or at least been fair with me. Can't say he's been fair with everybody, but him and I never had a problem. Tony Fabrizio feels good about Trump's chances, and it's kind of weird. I think I know what he's feeling and what he's going through, because it just wasn't like this before. Even in 2016, it just wasn't like this. Plus, comparing today's swing state polls to this point in 2020. And I mean, obviously, you can clearly see here. In his office at Donald Trump's campaign headquarters, pollster Tony Fabrizio has 3 post-it notes with one word each: weak, failed, dishonest. Those are the 3 words we're going to use every chance we can to define Joe Biden. Fabrizio, a Trump campaign senior advisor, told the group of 300 donors this weekend. 2 of them, I think, are valuable. The third one, I'm not sure what in its entirety, what his polling data says. I'm not sure all of the work that he may or may not have done on this, but Americans tend to view politicians dishonest. So I really don't think you're going to land a major blow with that here. Competency, definitely. Weakness, definitely. People don't like the president walking around the way Joe Biden walks around, like geriatric Joe. We call him for a reason. They don't want to see him shuffle they don't want to see him fall up and down the stairs of Air Force One and then do the geriatric shuffle all the way across the lawn in the Rose Garden to get into
or walk into bushes.
Or walk into bushes. By the way, you could tell a lot. You could tell a lot of a man by his animal. Are you aware that Commander has bit like 20-something people? Joe Biden's dog. Did anybody else know this? I only know because Kirsty Noem wrote a book. They've been all over her for saying that she had to put down a dog because the dog bit somebody. They jumped all over her for it, even though she didn't write about it like it was like fun. It was a somber situation. But somebody had to do what was tough because the animal was dangerous. Commander has bit more than, including Secret Service agents. If your dog is violent and you had him from the beginning, I'm not talking about some rescue that you got that was in like freaking dog fights or something you're trying to rehabilitate. This is the family puppy here. It says a lot about the Bidens to me. It really does. Tells me they're first and foremost shitty dog animal. They're shitty dog owners. Terrible dog owners. And terrible people. It means they probably beat the dog themselves. They probably excessively beat the dog, or they don't reprimand the dog at all. But no, they had to have done something horrible because dogs are not inherently violent. Domestic dogs, especially breed German Shepherds. Dog is not a violent dog. Doesn't come out of the womb violent. I'm predisposed. I got a gene. No, the Bidens made him a monster. And it does not make the Bidens look very good. With a reputation as a, quote, attack specialist who helped make the Willie Horton ad that wrecked Michael Dukakis in 88, boy it did, and who swift-boated John Kerry in 04, Fabrizio's aggressive framing of the race was utterly on brand. What's less known about Fabrizio is that, among political insiders, he has a reputation as a clear-eyed pessimist, one who won't search for silver linings because he's too concerned about the storm clouds. That is true. Which is why, by the way, I'm really shocked with the Pennsylvania poll because Fabrizio co-conducts that poll. And he's far more and not conservative in the way that you think. I mean, he is conservative about his findings when he works for the AARP. I don't care what anyone says. They are just, you can measure the difference between the AARP polls and the consensus. And stunning, Trump would be up like he's up. Stunning. All right. So, yet, despite the unprecedented challenges Trump faces, an embarrassing and time-consuming sex scandal, criminal trial, okay, a massive cash disadvantage, true, a huge disparity in paid advertising, true, in small on-the-ground campaign footprint compared to Biden's and corresponding drumbeat of negative coverage, true. Fabrizio on Saturday sounded uncharacteristically optimistic. Sorry, I was not looking at the screen while I'm trying to read. I think that's pretty wise. We're expanding the map, he said. Told donors at the Palm Beach Four Seasons Hotel. Remember we talked about this gathering on Monday? Do you remember that? And we went over the fact that both campaigns are claiming they're going to expand the map. Who really can and who really can't, right? I think at this point, Joe Biden is lying publicly. His campaign is lying. He's not ahead in any of these states. He's not. Sorry. It's questionable as to whether he's even tied on the popular vote. He's down right now in the aggregate, but could change. So the fact that Tony's so optimistic about this is, in public, a little bit surprising to me. Because you would expect him to keep it close to his vest the way that the Biden campaign does, knowing that they're losing. We're expanding the map. And this was on that little swing through. The averages compiled by Real Clear Politics were in the 7 crucial swing states that will decide the elections: Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. There was an outlier poll in Arizona. It's the first and only poll all year to show Biden ahead. I think it's almost 2 years now. Listen, I think that's a clear-cut case of chasing the weight. They have had that pollster particularly, who's known for being a pollster in Arizona. I mean, they're known. It's their shtick. I think they're doing what's called chasing the weight. It's when you're wrong, which they were in 20 and 24. Or 22, excuse me. When you're wrong, you try to retool and figure it out what you may have done incorrectly. And then you just, unfortunately, giving up a solid, sound methodology. Sometimes you're going to just be wrong. It doesn't mean your methodology is bad, but people think maybe that's it, and they wind up chasing the weight. And I think that's what's going on there with that poll, unfortunately for them, because you get caught in a loop. And when you changed it, you're going to be wrong again if you had a sound methodology. So now it's no longer the, 19 out of 20 times you're going to look like this. It's just constantly resetting that 20 count. And most often than not, getting it wrong, resetting it all over again. All right. How much time? A minute. That scenario, called the current reality, was listed on one of the 3 slides and possible electoral college outcomes presented Saturday by Fabrizio. The first slide in the presentation, labeled the media's version, showed the 7 swing states up for grabs. The third, an expanded reality map, listed Minnesota and Virginia as possible Trump pickups, which Democrats call laughable and unrealistic. Minnesota is not. Before Virginia, Minnesota will go. But Minnesota is not laughable, and they would do wise not to laugh. If, by the way, they believe that, they would not have sent that huge team with 3 of their top guys to Minnesota with a huge budget to defend it, which they did a few weeks ago when we talked about a few weeks ago when it happened. He knows it's close. And I get that. Going back to the last question, we need a poll in Minnesota. I get it. I'm working on it, which is a good time to say, push the public polling project, guys. We have not had great funding for the public polling project. And Laura and I really shelled to try last year to make up for it. I would if I could. I can't keep that pace up. So let's make a crowdfund campaign push. I'd love to. I would. Anyway, Fabrizio made his presentation. He's uncharacteristically optimistic about it. I'll put the link in the description for that as we're on the way out. Of course, we are out of time, unfortunately. And I got to do my little thanking of everybody here. Tax helpers, thanks. Link is in the description, as of course. Freedom Gold USA. Links are in the description. It's tax relief helpers. And you can go and check out the website, taxreliefhelpers.com. And we'll be back. Sean Parnell tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget, we're going to talk more about this, actually. So it's all right that we got cut off. All right. But if you like the videos, don't forget to like them. Like them. Share them far and wide. And subscribe. Cross-subscribe. Cross-like on different platforms. It helps a lot. I cannot stress it. It helps a lot. Take a few moments of your time to do so. And of course, the best place to follow us is, when Laura gets rid of the banner, going to be right down here. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. That is the best place to follow us. By the way, speaking of the crowdfunded public polling project, it's right there. When you go to peoplespundit.locals.com, you're going to see it in the right bar, the right sidebar, if you're on a tablet, desktop, laptop, and it'll say, I think it says support our polls or something. Hands are up, hands are waving. That's where it is. Or you could always just go to Big Data Poll and scroll down, All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks. Again, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to follow, share, like, you know the drill. I don't think I'm missing anything except for an entire article I wanted to read, but 2 hours goes by so quick. It really does.
It sure does.
It sure does, Laura. It really does.
Time flies when we're hanging out with cool people.
I guess it's right, and I guess it's best to have more content ready to go for a show than less, and not knowing what the hell to do with yourself, right? I always over prepare, almost always. All right, so with that in mind, I know, right? Me overdoing it, something. All right, with that in mind, we're gonna kick rocks. We'll see you at 5, hopefully, and definitely see you on Wednesday at noon. Dude. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Be safe. Deuces. Deuces.